Uganda has come a long way in its recognition and treatment of mental health problems. But stigma and a misconception about the whole problem is still one of the challenges to solving mental health problems in the country. Now, as we recognize this month as the Mental Health Awareness Month, what do you know about mental health? This would seem an easy question to answer due to the misconception many of us have about mental illness. But these illnesses do not present straightforward signs and symptoms, and in most cases, one needs to pay critical attention to understand that someone is struggling with mental health problems. People with severe mental disorders, which include schizophrenia and related conditions, bipolar disorder, and moderate and severe depression, die on average 10 to 20 years earlier than the general population, mostly from preventable physical diseases. Sarah Tushemereire is one of the people who openly shares her battle with bipolar disorder, a mental health complication she has lived with since childhood.
When I was much younger, I was always scared. So I was so fearful. I would never leave the house. When they would want to send you to the shops, they knew Sarah doesn't go out. So yeah, and I was sad a lot. And I used to compare myself to others. At such an early age of 11 in P6, I remember thinking I'm not beautiful.
Bipolar disorder is a mental health condition that causes extreme mood swings that include emotional highs, mania or hypermania, and lows, depression.
I was in senior 2. I had extreme hallucination in class. I began screaming, fighting, and saying things really which were not there. So that's how I was put on medication.
Medical experts say multiple social, psychological, and biological factors determine the level of mental health of a person at any point of time.
But to go with that, they could even develop difficulties in perception, where they tell you they see ugly scenes all the time. They see people burying, they see blood flowing.
Unlike Tushemereire's case, there are specific psychological and personality factors that make people vulnerable to mental health problems.
Common infections in our environment, like somebody develops malaria and gets confused and restless. We call these organic illnesses. Organic because there is something external which is irritating the brain. They hear voices telling them they are bad and that they don't deserve to live anymore, which are some of what we call the perceptual disorders.
For a while, I kept hearing voices telling me that if I harm myself, I would feel better. So I would, and unfortunately, they were right. But with time, the voices stopped, but I continued harming myself.
Poor mental health is associated with rapid social change, stressful work conditions, gender discrimination, social exclusion, unhealthy lifestyles, physical ill health, and human rights violations.
Communication and interaction in families is reducing because development has created internet, mobile phones, and all these other gadgets that people resort to all the time instead of communicating and burning off the stress. They just get more and more stressed with their gadgets.
Uganda has a draft mental health policy and an outdated mental health law, but no separate comprehensive mental health strategic plan. The last study on mental health in Uganda, which was released in 2016 by the Health Ministry and World Health Organization, shows that a lot of effort is needed to support the mental health sector. By then, only 1% of health funding was specifically directed towards mental health in primary care. This, as a percentage of the current budget, amounts to about 1 billion shillings. With just one mental referral hospital and less than 30 psychiatrists, The burden on Butabika is enormous. And for those who can afford, private doctors are the only way to receive any care. Treatment is in various stages depending on the extent of the mental condition one has.
So the treatment plan guides on what will be done next depending on the diagnosis that has been given to the client. Now, if it requires admission, the person will be admitted on the ward. Initially, they start on what we call an acute ward, depending on the level of the symptoms. Usually, if they are very disturbed, they get immediate medication to calm them down. They are further assessed on abilities to function. So that assessment is done by health workers. Some of them require support in terms of dealing with activities of daily living. So we have a department that works on that, occupational therapy.
Shemereirwe, who is now recovering at home, says communication and understanding from her family has been key to this process.
Village would be a great part of overcoming this. And also people are different. So you find me maybe as expressing the feel of fear with withdrawing, but someone else will express that same feel with being loud and angry, and so it's trying to study, be equipped you yourself, and then we try to say, okay, is my child showing these symptoms?
She also envisions a great future ahead, especially one filled with motivational speaking engagements.
I want to write a book. I believe that I've survived to tell my story, to help impact families and people and bring hope. So right now, I don't know if you know, I'm doing the campaign trying to raise funds to write and publish this book.
Every one of us is at a potential risk of suffering mental illness. Therefore, it is important that we end the stigma by getting involved in the struggle to address these challenges. Walter Mwesije, NTV.